Hello guys, this is the 13th part of creating an online food store using Angular. In this video, we want to implement a very simple cart page. So you can add some food to the cart. You can see the cart page by clicking on the cart link on the right side of the header. You can change the quantity of the food, and it's gonna change the price of the cart item and total price of the whole cart. You'll also be able to see number of the foods. For example, if you remove this, it's gonna be 2. In the next video, we wanna make it beautiful using CSS. So stay tuned and follow this series to not miss the future videos. Let's go to have a cart page. The first thing that we wanna do in this session is creating the cart item model and creating the cart model, because we need a holder for the cart and the cart item. Let's start from the cart item because I want to use it inside the cart. So I need to have it first. Okay, let's do it. Here inside the src folder, inside the shared folder, you can right click on the model and click on the new file and write CartItem.ts. Close the Explorer and let's write export class cart item. Here we need 2 properties. The first property is the food itself, because each cart item represents a food. So let's write food of type food. Press enter, so it will be imported here because of the Angular Essentials plugin that we installed before. Semicolon. And the other property is the quantity of type number, and its default value is 1. Since we defined the default value, and the default value could be only used when we use new keyword for instantiating this cart item, so we need to use object-oriented manner, that is filling the fields using constructor. Okay, let's add the constructor here, an input parameter of type food, and let's set this.food, that is this property, equal to this food. Perfect. But we also need a function here for calculating the price of this specific cart item. It needs to multiply the quantity with the food price. So it's gonna be this cart item's price. Okay, let's add it. You can set its name to getPrice. Its type should be number. Let's write return this.food.price multiplied by this.quantity. So each time we change the quantity, the price of this cart item will change. But each time that we want to use this getPrice, we need to write this.getPrice like this. But we can make it more beautiful. We can write it even without parentheses. We have some special functions in TypeScript called getters and setters. They will act just like a normal function, but you will see them as a normal property. Let me show you. Instead of writing getPrice, we can put in space between these two and make this p lowercase. Because of the convention of JavaScript, the members of class will start with lowercase character. So now we can just write price. And each time we use price, it will call this function even if you don't put that parenthesis. In fact, you can't put it because it will throw error. It needs to be used just like a normal property. I think it's much more beautiful, so I want to use getters. So we have our cart item. Let's use it inside our cart. Here inside the Explorer, right click on the models. Let's create another file with the name of cart.ts. Close the Explorer. We need to write export class cart. This cart has only a list of cart items. It could have other properties, but for now I just want to add the items. That is a list of cart item that we made seconds ago. And it needs to be an empty array by default. But we also need another getter property here for calculating the total price. I want to use another getter here, get total price. Its output is number because the total price should be a number. Let's define a variable for the total price. Let's total price equal to 0. And now let's loop through the items and get each item's price and add it to the total price. And then we can have the total price. So this.items.for each item, the total price should be plus equal to item.price. Then we can return the total price. So we made our carts too. Let's close this too and get back to the bullet points. We made this and this. As the third job in this session, we need to create a cart service for implementing the business of the cart. And once again, since we don't want to implement the backend, we want to do all of these business on top of a temporary cart field. Okay, let's start with creating the cart service. Inside the code, we can toggle the terminal by pressing Ctrl and backtick. Let's open up a new terminal. And here we can write ng, g, and this time s, because we want a service. We want to generate a service, not a component. So it's not a GC, it's a GS. And the path and the name of our service. The path should be /services/cart/cart. So anything before the last part gonna be the path, and the last part gonna be the name of the service. So it's gonna put it inside the services folder and gonna create another folder with the name of cart, and it's gonna create a cart service just like a food service here. Okay, let's press enter here. As you can see, we have a cart folder and a cart service inside it. Perfect. Let's close the terminal. We don't need it. Let's close the Explorer. No, don't close the Explorer. Okay, let's open up the cart service. Okay, here we want to add a private field called cart of type cart itself, the cart model that we made. Okay, private cart of type cart, and it needs to be a new cart by default. Okay, we can also put it inside the constructor, but there is no difference. I want to keep it like this because I think it's more simple. Okay, let's continue by adding the addToCart function to the cart service. Okay, let's do it. We don't need the constructor, we can remove it. We need addToCart function. It needs the food as the input parameter, and it will return nothing. Okay, here, first of all, we need to check if we already have a cart item with this food or not. So let's create a variable for the cart item. Let cart item equal to this.cart items find for each item, check if the item.food.id is equal to food, this food, .id. So for each item inside these items, if this expression is true, return that item, because we don't want to set two cart items with the same food into the cart. We just want to increase their quantity. Okay? They shouldn't be duplicated. Okay, in the next line, we want to check if we already have that food inside that cart item. It means if this cart item is not null. So if cart item means if it's not null or undefined, we want to increase the quantity of the food. So we need to use another function called changeQuantity. We didn't implement it yet, but that's okay. We could implement it in the next steps. So don't worry about it. This dot changeQuantity, it needs a food ID. So we're going to pass the food.id and we need to increase the quantity of the cart item by 1 and send it to the changeQuantity function. So cart item, we founded cart item dot quantity plus 1. So we're going to send the cart item quantity plus 1 to the changeQuantity function with the food ID. So let's put a semicolon here and return from the function to do not continue executing the next lines. We could also remove this return and write else here, but your code will not be too good if you have too much curly braces. So remove them as much as you can. In this situation, we can easily add a return here and remove the next else, because if this else be true, next line will not be called, because this return gonna stop this function to be continued to the next line. Okay, but what should we do here if we don't have a cart item with this food inside the cart items? We need to create a new cart item with this food and add it to the cart items. Okay, let's do it. Let's write this dot carts dot items dot push. We want to push a new value to this cart items and write new cart item with the mandatory parameter of food. So let's pass the food in it. Okay, we did this part. Let's check it inside the bullet points. Now it's time to writing removeFromCart function for removing the cart item with this food ID from the cart items. Okay, let's do it. The function name is removeFromCart. it needs the food ID as a parameter and it's a number, and it will return nothing, just like the addToCart function. We want to set this.cart.items equal to this.cart.items.filter. We want all the items that their item.food.id are not equal to this food ID. By doing this, we are keeping everything except this food ID. Okay, we did the removeFromCart function. Let's check it and go for adding the changeQuantity function. Let's scroll down a little bit. Yeah, and write changeQuantity. It needs a food ID as a number and the quantity of type number as well. Okay, so we are implementing this function, and as you can see, there is no error anymore because we are implementing it here. Once again, we need to find the cart item based on its food ID. Okay, so let's create a variable. Let cart item equal to this.cart.items.find the item if the item's food.id is equal to food ID. Here we need to say if not cart item. It's the opposite of what we did inside the addToCart. It means if the cart item is null or if it's undefined. Here we just want to return. We don't want to do anything because we didn't find any cart item to change its quantity. Otherwise, set the cart item.quantity equal to the given quantity. Okay, here we go. And the last function that we want to implement is the getCart function that will not get anything but will return a cart. Okay, we are using it for encapsulating the cart, so we just need to return this.cart, the cart that we define when we start creating the cart service. Okay, so now let's get back to the bullet points. Here, as you can see, we implemented the changeQuantity and getCart function, so we did everything about the cart service, and our cart service is completely ready. Okay, to this point, we implemented the logic of our application. In this moment, we want to create the UI, something that we could see. And the first thing is creating the cart page. Let's just start with the cart page. So let's jump into the code. Okay, let's close this cart service and open up the terminal. Here we need to write ng gc and the name of that component, that is cart page. Keep in mind that you need to write your second word with capital case. Or you need to write it like this with kebab case, that is like this. Cart dash page. So let's create it like this. As you can see, we have our cart component stuff here. They are generated. Let's open up the Explorer to see where it is. Yes, we have the cart page component with everything. We go inside it. You could see that cart page component name is in its good convention, camel case. Okay, we have our cart page component. So let's add the members that we need to add to it. Okay, let's close the Explorer. Here, first of all, we need to inject the cart service here. The cart service that we made minutes ago. Okay, so let's write private cart service of type cart service. Now we need to add the cart property here for holding the cart details. Okay, cart of type cart. And shouldn't be nullable. Now we need to create a function here for setting the cart from the cart service. We want to call it setCart. Okay, setCart. It's a function. It doesn't have any input parameters and it will return nothing. It's just gonna get the cart from the cart service and set it to the cart inside the cart page component. So this.cart should be equal to CartService.getCart. Here we go. We have the setCart function. Let's see the bullet points. We created the cart page component. We have the cart property. We have the setCart function. Now we need to add the removeFromCart function and changeQuantity function to the cart page component. Okay, let's do it. So after the constructor, let's move this setCart after the ng on init. And here, let's add the removeFromCart function. It needs the cart item of type cart item. So we need to call this removeFromCart function from the HTML file and pass a cart item to it to be removed. Okay. Now we just need to call the functions that we implemented inside the cart service. We have a removeFromCart function there, so we could easily call it. So this.CartService.removeFromCart, and we just need to pass cart item.food.id. And after doing it, we need to refresh the cart, or we need to set a new value to the cart for it to be refreshed. Okay, so let's call this.setCart. the function that we wrote at first. Okay, we made the remove from cart function. Now it's time for the last function, the changeQuantity function. So let's write its name, changeQuantity. It needs the cart item that's of type CartItem. It needs the quantity in a string. I will tell you why it should be a string, but please take it how it is right now. Okay, we need to parse this quantity in string into quantity in integer. So let's create a const quantity. We want to make it const because we don't want to change it after setting the value. Called the parseInt function. It's a default JavaScript function for converting a string integer into a real JavaScript integer. So let's write quantity in a string. Okay, we have the quantity right now. Now we can easily call the changeQuantity function from the cart service. So let's write this dot cart service change quantity. We need to pass CartItem.food.id and the new quantity that is of type number, because integer is of type number. Now once again we need to do this dot setCart. Okay, we have removeFromCart and changeQuantity function here. Let's get back and check these two. And we create the whole thing about cart page component TS file. Now it's time for adding the cart page components route to the router. And say, where should we do it? Yes, app routing module. Let's just scroll down and inside the app routing module, close the Explorer. Here we can add a new route with the path of cart page and the component of cart page component. Okay, so when we go to the cart page inside the address bar, it's gonna go to the cart page component. Let's test in the browser if you could be able to see the cart page. Here, we just need to click here because we already implemented the router link for the cart page here for this button. Let's click on it, and as you can see, we have cart page works. Now just let's get back and check this one. Now it's time for adding food to the cart. So we need to add the addToCart function inside the food page component. Let me show you. Let's get back to the main page, click on a food here. After clicking on the addToCart button, this food should be added to the cart and we should be moved to the cart page. Okay, let's do it. Let's get back to the code, close this. Let's open up the food page component inside the food page folder, food page component.ts file. After the ng on in it, we need to add addToCart function. But before that, I want to add the cart service here because we implemented the addToCart function inside the cart service. Okay, let's add a comma here, private cart service of type cart service. Now we have the cart service injected inside this food component. Okay, let's scroll down. We just need to write addToCart without any parameter because we already have that food here. So we don't need to get it from the template file. Let's use the cart service, this.cartService.addToCart function and pass this.food. But it will not do the whole thing. We still need to go to the cart page. So we need the router. So we need to inject it here inside the constructor. So let's write private router of type router. And we could scroll down here. After adding the food to the cart, we could say this.router.navigate by URL /cart-page. It is exactly like having an A tag with a router link with this address. So it's gonna move us to the cart page, but it's not gonna work because we didn't add the addToCart function inside the click event of addToCart button. Let's do it right now. Open up the Explorer, food page component, and addToCart button here. Let's open up a round bracket and right click equal to addToCart. Okay, let's see it in action. Let's click on the addToCart button and now we are inside the cart page. But since we didn't implement anything inside the cart page component, we can't see that food. Okay, now let's get back to the bullet points and check adding addToCart function inside the food page component. From this moment, the rest of the things that we need to do should be done inside the cart page template file. So we could see them and it's more interesting in my opinion. Okay, now we need to show the cart items inside an unordered list or a UL. Okay, let's go and show the cart items inside an unordered list. Let's close the food page component and food page component TS file. Here we need to go to the cart page component HTML file that is the template file. So first of all, let's delete this and write UL. Inside it, we need to have a list of LIs. Let's write LI and we need to have an ng4 we want to show each cart item of the list of carts.items. Okay, here we could show all the cart items to the user. First of all, we want to show the food image. Once again, I need to say it's gonna be very ugly because I don't want to talk about the CSS in this video. Okay, let's write div. Inside this div, we need the image. We need to set its src from a property, so we can't leave it like this. We need to put it inside a square bracket and write CartItem.food.image URL, because the image URL is part of the food. And the alternative text could be CartItem.food.name, the name of the food. We could show the name of the food as the alternative text. Okay, let's see how it looks. We don't have anything inside the cart page. Let's add an item to the cart page. Oh, we don't have anything here. Why? Because I forgot something. Let's get back to the cart page component TS file. As you can see, the cart here doesn't have any initial value. So what should we do? We should add the setCart function inside the constructor. Okay, let's write this .setCart. If you're asking why we don't have the image right now, it's because when you save your project files, while the Angular watching all the files, it's gonna refresh the browser. And while we are using the temporary JavaScript variables, it's going to get removed. So we need to add the food once again. Okay, let's add this one and this one. And as you can see, we have the food here. And if we add another food, gonna be here. So the cart page works really well. Okay, now we need to show the food name as a link to the food page. Okay, we need another div. Inside it, we need an a tag with a router link to the /food, that is the route of the food page, and the food ID that we need to use interpolation for adding it here. We need to add it from CartItem.food.id. Okay, let's close the a tag, and once again we need to use interpolation for showing CartItem.food.name. So here we're gonna show the food name while we have a link to its food page. Let's see the result. Let's add this hamburger, the cart page, and here if we click on this hamburger, we're gonna go to the food page. Perfect. Here we need to add the select box for changing the quantity of the foods. Okay, let's add another div here. Let's add a select box here. Its ID should be quantity select. We need it for getting its value. We can also use ng model for it, but we just need it here. So I think we don't need to do that. Okay, we need to change function. So after changing the select, the changeQuantity function should be called. It needs the cart item that we are changing its quantity. And now we easily need to write quantity select dot value. Okay, you don't need to write ID equal to quantity select. You just need to add a hashtag and the name of your element. I just wanted to make it quantity select. You can change it to anything you want. Okay, write quantity select dot value. Let's close the function. Now after changing the selected value, it's gonna call the changeQuantity function that we wrote inside the cart page component TS file. The only thing that we need to define right now is the options. So we just need to write option 1, could duplicate it 4 times, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Here we go. We have our select box. Let's see how it looks. Let's add this to the cart. Here we go. We have our quantity select box. Okay, let's get back. Now it's time for showing the price of each cart item. Okay, let's add a div inside an interpolation. Let's write CartItem.price and let's type it with the currency format. Let's see the result. Okay, we have its price. If you change the price, okay, gonna change. 1 is 20 and 4 is 80. It works really well. Okay, let's get back. And the last thing for the cart item is the remove button. We need to be able to remove an item from the cart, right? Okay, let's add another div, button, with the class of remove button. In its click event, we need to call removeFromCart function. It needs the cart item to remove it from the cart. Okay, here we go. Inside the button, we need to write remove. So the text of the button is remove. Okay, let's see how it looks here. Let's add one item, this item, and this item to the cart. So we have 3 items here. Let's try to remove the last one. Okay, it works. Let's try to remove the first one. It works. We only have the fried potatoes. Okay, everything that we need here are ready. We just need to show the total price of the whole cart and proceed to the checkout button. Okay, let's come out from the UL and write another div that checkout. Inside this checkout div, we also need to show the count. Okay, let's write div. Inside this div, we need to have 2 divs. The first div is of class foods count. Inside it, we need to show number of the items inside the cart. Okay, cart.items.length. Okay, then we need to add a class of total price, interpolation. Inside it, we need to write cart.totalPrice. The getter function that we made minutes ago. Let's see it in action. We have 0 and 0 here. We don't need to show when the cart page is empty. We need to show, hey, cart page is empty. Get back to the main page. Something like that. We're gonna do it in the next sessions, but for now, it is like this. Okay, let's get back and add a food, another food. Okay, so now the total price is 30. Pizza pepperoni is $10 and meatball is $20. Let's change the quantity of meatball to 3. So now it's 60 and it's 10, so it should be $70. But we didn't add the currency pipe here. Let's do it. For the total price, we need to add the currency pipe. So if we get back meatball, it has the currency format. Okay, now we have everything that we needed to have in this session. We have a fully functional cart page, of course, without a backend, but there is no difference if you add the backend. The view gonna be like this. You just need to change the cart service, have some HTTP requests to the server. Okay, this was for this session. In the next session, we want to make this cart page very beautiful. So stay tuned for the next session and don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button to not miss the future videos. You've been watching Code with Nasir and I hope to see you next time.